Reading and writing are two of the most basic skills essential to acquiring an education. Most of us probably take for granted the ability to read and write and the opportunities that these skills afford us. I was very fortunate to have parents that were reading to me before I could even speak. Books and stories were a part of my childhood from the beginning. Some of my fondest childhood memories are of my mother reading me classics such as Winnie the Pooh. Another favorite was an entire series of bug books, which my mother bought solely for the purpose of teaching me not to be scared of bugs, as I would scream at the top of my lungs over every speck on the floor thinking that it was a dreaded bug. After being read these stories, I imagined a wonderful world of bugs, and from then on wanted to rescue everyone that I found. As I grew older, the stories I read began to take on new depth. My love for reading had been instilled, and I would read anything that I could get my hands on. Books opened windows into the world around me and encouraged me to critically think about things that I had never even considered. One of the most moving stories I remember is the one of Frederick Douglass teaching himself to read and write. Frederick Douglass was born a slave. When Douglass was about 12 years old, his master's wife, Sophia, started teaching him the alphabet, despite the fact that it was against the law to teach slaves to read. Douglass described her as a kind and tender-hearted woman who treated Douglass like one human being ought to treat another. When her husband discovered her activity, he strongly disapproved, saying that if a slave learned to read, he would become dissatisfied with his condition and desire freedom. Once Douglass learned the alphabet, there was no stopping him. He continued secretly to teach himself to read and write in various ways, some from the other children in the neighborhood and also by observing the writings of men with whom he worked. Douglass is noted as saying that knowledge is the pathway from slavery to freedom. As Douglass began to read newspapers, political materials, and books of every description, he was exposed to a new realm of thought that led him to question and condemn the institution of slavery. Now, we might take this as a lesson in history of the struggles of individuals of the past that no longer exist. However, the sad truth is that this is not the case. Literacy is still a very real problem facing our nation. Taking a look at the map, we can see that New York and California came in with the worst numbers, at California 23% and New York 22% of adults lacking basic prose literacy. Right here in our state of Missouri, we can see a large percentage of our state falls between the 9th and 10th percentile lacking basic prose literacy, and far too many additional states falling between the 11th and 16th percentile. Right here in Missouri, we can look at the map and see that a large percentage of our state falls between the 9th and 10th percentile of adults lacking basic prose literacy, and far too many additional states falling between the 11th to 16th percentile. When we think about our future generations, what can an individual really hope to accomplish in life without the basic skills to read and write? How can they hope to ever acquire the knowledge that they desire, let alone perform a basic task like filling out a job application? The good news is that there is still hope. We as future educators have the opportunity and the tools to make sure that these statistics of adult illiteracy keep dwindling. Children have more technology and resources available to them than ever before and are learning to read at earlier ages and being exposed to books in such a variety of ways. One of my favorites, especially for younger children, are interactive books that are displayed digitally to engage children in classics such as Little Red Riding Hood or one of my favorites, Rapunzel. Most of them include follow-along reading, where as the story is being read, the words are either highlighted or made to stand out in some way. So even as a 2 or 3-year-old child is being read a story in this manner, they are learning without even realizing it. At the end of the day, inspiring students to be enthusiastic about learning is the ultimate goal. And through literacy, all things are possible.